Welcome to A Well Cared For Human, the podcast that tries to convince you that you are 100% normal and an even better than okay example of the human species, despite the fact that sometimes we feel like the craziest, most incapable, or worthless creatures on the face of this planet. I'm Kory, an author, a creative, and the host of the show. Whatever you're bringing to the table today, I hope this episode proves to be a dose of inspiration for you on your quest to become a well-cared-for human. You can find the episode show notes, your free wellness blueprint, and more at awellcaredforhuman.com. And as always, thank you for listening. Hello humans, it's your host Kory, and today we're going to talk about ambition. Really, this is an episode about balance, but we're going to look at it through the lens of ambition. But I hope that by the time you reach the end of this episode, I've encouraged you to have a healthy relationship with ambition. And most of us have ambitions. This can be grand as far as big goals, big dreams that you have for yourself and your life. Or this could be really subtle, such as the ideas that you have around how things should be. You should have this kind of body. You should have this kind of house, this kind of car. You should be making this much money, things like that. Because many of us are future-oriented in these ways, and we tell ourselves that we will be happy when we have X, Y, or Z. But that just sets us up for misery because research shows that we are almost always changing what the X, Y, and Z should be. So by the time that we get there and we've fulfilled one ambition, the goal is new. It's a new goal. So for example, maybe you lose 10 pounds, but then you tell yourself, but really I should lose 15 or 20. And so it just keeps going. Yes, I lost weight, but now I need a new wardrobe. Or yes, I lost weight and I have a new wardrobe, but now I need new hair. Like really our ability to find the next best thing is ingrained in us for some reason. But it is possible to have a healthy relationship with ambition so that we can benefit from the positive aspects of ambition, but also not let the negative aspects overwhelm us. So for example, ambition gives us motivation to work on ourselves and to make progress in our lives, but it could also set us up for hating on ourselves. There's a saying that I like that perfectly sums up what I'm trying to get at here, which is, you are perfect as you are, but there's also room for improvement. And that's the kind of balance that I want for myself and also for you, in which we can love ourselves and accept ourselves completely, exactly as we are in this moment, no matter what has happened or where we're starting from, but then also, at the same time, gently push ourselves toward great things. But how do we do that? How do we even manage that? Well, first, let me give you a little bit of a breakdown of my own history with ambition. So I'll be the first to tell you that my ambition is often out of balance. It's a big issue in my life now that I focus on pretty heavily, pretty often, which is why this was a podcast episode idea. Because I'm like, what am I struggling with right now? I'm struggling with ambition. And the reason for that is because my ambition often makes me miserable. My ambition is often the source of my misery, and that's because it's out of balance. And the reason why it's out of balance is that I use it as a tool to beat myself up, to be too hard on myself, to compare myself to other people, and to always focus on how I'm not measuring up. Those are the unbalanced, unhealthy ways to look at ambition and to think about ambition. And my ambitions primarily do focus around my career as a writer, as a creative. I have a lot of ambitions when it comes to things that I make, whether that be my books or this podcast or paintings or sometimes even things that should be just hobbies, but then I take them too seriously because I'm a perfectionist. So like learning languages, for example. I had a Spanish lesson this morning and I didn't know a lot of the vocabulary for that particular theme we were talking about, and I was really hard on myself after the lesson about what an idiot I am when it comes to learning languages. Things like that. So I have a lot of ambitions for my personal interests and for my work. And I know that that comes from my father because he is also a very ambitious, driven person, and pretty much the only way that I could earn his respect or even an acknowledgement from him or any kind of love or affection was to achieve something. He really only acknowledged me when I achieved things that either he couldn't do or that he had found difficult. So, for example, graduating from high school was a big thing because he had not graduated from high school. He had dropped out and got his GED and joined the Marines when he was still 17. And so, it was usually stuff centered around my education, like getting my degrees, going to college and stuff. He would make a big deal out of that stuff, or the fact that I was very bookish because he himself was not a good reader. He could not read very well. I remember when I was growing up, he would hand me things and ask me to read it to him. And so these were the things that he kind of prized. And for that reason, I often did my best to excel in those areas because that was pretty much one of the only ways I could guarantee that I would get any sort of acknowledgement from him. And I think it's good to have a certain level of ambition in your life. I mean, again, there are good qualities to ambition. So the good qualities are the fact that it always pushes me to try to do my best. It pushes me to try to achieve more than I thought I originally could. So, for example, I always go above and beyond what I think I need to do. And so that's good to kind of have that driving force that pushes me to try new things, to do better, to improve the quality of something. If I do it right the first time and it's not great, I will do it again. But again, the negative qualities of that are the beating myself up, the being too hard on myself, the demanding too much of myself, and kind of sacrificing other aspects of my life in the service of ambition. So I do have to be mindful of that and balance that out so that I can have a healthy relationship with ambition. Because ambition, again, it can drive you to achieve your goals and fulfill your potential, but if it's not balanced, it's going to force you to sacrifice your self-care, it's going to have you sacrificing your well-being, and so it really needs to be a healthy relationship with ambition. But how do we have a healthy relationship with ambition? One of the things that I try to focus on is getting really clear about my values and priorities. So having some clarity around what really matters to me, identifying what is my core values, both personally and professionally, that really helps me to set meaningful goals, not just any kind of goal. Because one aspect of this is that it's common that many of us have goals that aren't even really our goals. Like, would I have gone to school as long as I did if my father hadn't valued education as much as he did? I don't know. I don't know if that's really something that was really that important to me, or was that just something that was really important to him that he kind of pressed upon me in the secondhand nature. And we do that with everything, right? Some people really value being the richest person around. And so you feel like you have to be the wealthiest person you know, right? Because that's valued. And so, but does that level of wealth really matter to you? I mean, only you can answer that. But this idea of people absorbing other people's ambitions is definitely something that we struggle with culturally as a worldwide species. As a very human thing, we tend to absorb the priorities and values of others. So it helps to know what really matters to you, what's really valuable to you, and then to base your goals in alignment with your beliefs and your passions. And it's also very important to know what you will not sacrifice for the sake of a goal. So, for example, recently I realized that I really care about my health, and that priority was made clear to me when I hurt my back. And I was having a really hard time doing so many things, and I was miserable. When I was sitting, I was miserable. When I was standing, I was miserable. When I would walk, I'd be miserable. Anytime I was trying to use my body, which was all the time, I would just be miserable. And because I was in pain all the time, I just really had it. I felt a really low quality of life. Like I couldn't really enjoy anything that I was doing. And that made it really clear to me that my health is my priority. Like I really care about my health, because if my pain level is too high to enjoy my life, then what's the point in working so hard to build a life that I love living if I'm too miserable to enjoy it? And one of the reasons why I have so much pain in my back, why my back gives me so much trouble, one is because I was stupid enough to build a 6-foot privacy fence with myself and some tools, which was not a great idea. I don't recommend it. But also, more importantly, it's my posture when I'm writing. So I write 10 to 12 hours a day, or not just writing, but I'm doing things on my computer 10 to 12 hours a day. So here I am hunched over my computer that long. I'm not moving a lot. I'm not using my body as it is intended. And it's really starting to show in my back. They did x-rays of my back, and it said that I have spinal stenosis, which is like a narrowing of the column, the spinal column, and then also some compression between the discs, and then also multi-level end plate degeneration, which just means kind of like the spine's falling apart. And then most importantly, that the L4, L5 disc is mildly bulging. And so all of these things are being made worse by my posture. Like, I need to be moving my body more. I can't be sitting at my computer all day, every day. My back is getting better, by the way, so don't worry about me, even though I just talked about how it's falling apart. It is getting better. I'm doing all the physical therapy and stuff that I need to do to make it stronger, and my pain level has gone way down. It's just a little tight on one side, but I'm working on it, so don't worry about me. I don't mean to make this sound doom or gloom, but this experience showed me that while, yes, my writing career is very important to me, being able to write books, the books that I want to write all day, every day, important, but I don't want to sacrifice my health in order to have that goal, because it won't be worth it, right? No amount of success or achievement in the writing world is going to feel worth it if my back is destroyed in service of trying to chase that goal. Let's say I have all the success that I wanted tomorrow. If I'm in too much pain to enjoy it, then what was it for? Like, why did I even do all that work? And so I want to be able to enjoy what I'm working for. And so it's only going to matter to me if I arrive at that finish line with my health intact. So now I've been making changes and adjustments to the way I write, the way I work. Sometimes I'll stand up, sometimes I'll go walking. I got myself a Fitbit that nudges me every hour if I haven't taken enough steps, things like that. So I'm making lifestyle changes so that when I arrive at the goal that I want, I will not have sacrificed something important to me in order to get there. So get really clear on what your priorities are. Maybe even figure out where they rank for you, like what your non-negotiables are. So for example, like I just said, I have a lot of writing goals, but it's not worth it to me if I can't have my health when I arrive there. So think about that, kind of think about the different things you want and where they rank in relation to your other goals. Know what you're not willing to sacrifice in order to achieve certain things. And also make sure that your goals are realistic. So it's great to dream big, set big goals for yourself, but make sure that your steps to getting there are achievable and within your control. Unrealistic goals, and I speak from experience, they tend to lead to stress and burnout and disappointment. And being too hard on yourself, especially, I mean, I cannot be the only one out there who is really hard on themselves and who is too demanding of themselves. And that's one of the ways that I struggle with balance, right? If I were to list out my goals, I usually then have to bring them down to about 50% to make it reasonable. So for example, I wrote out like, I'll be fluent in Spanish in 3 months. No, I'll be fluent in like 5 years. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be too hard on yourself and be demanding. And the reason why it's going to be years before I'm fluent, not months, is because I have a lot of other things going on, right? Can someone be fluent in 3 months? Sure. If they don't have anything else to do, if they have the time every day to dedicate hours and hours to pursuing that particular goal. But the reality is that most of us have about 50,000 things going on at any given time. And so you need to be mindful that it's going to take more time if you are kind of dispersed in your interests in that way. And so just be reasonable. Don't be too hard on yourself. Don't beat yourself up, because that will definitely pull you out of balance with your ambition as well. It also helps to have a certain level of self-awareness and mindfulness. So checking in with yourself regularly to make sure that your ambitions are in alignment with your well-being rather than working against them, kind of like what I was saying about the back situation. But also paying attention to your emotions, to your stress levels, to your overall happiness. Are you making yourself miserable chasing these goals? Because like I said, my ambition often makes me miserable. And that's because I'm doing it in this very heavy-handed way, right? I'm giving myself excessive stress and negativity. It's impacting me too much because I am not keeping my health a priority. I'm not pursuing things in balance. I'm not being easy and relaxful, if these are even words, in my pursuit of this. And so self-awareness is crucial for keeping an eye out, or I guess we could say rather an ear out, tuned for that inner voice as well. So how are you talking to yourself when you're pursuing these ambitions? Are you berating yourself while you work toward your goals or while you work on yourself, or are you treating yourself kindly? So if you fail at something or you hit a setback, which is absolutely part of the process, and embracing failure and setbacks is 100% necessary in order to have a healthy relationship with ambition as well. But when you hit a setback or you encounter failure, what do you say to yourself? Like, are you telling yourself you're the worst, most stupidest person in the planet and you don't know why you even tried to do this because clearly you're never going to get anything right ever? Like, is that how you're talking to yourself? Or are you saying things like, that didn't work out the way I wanted it to, but I learned a lot from that and I'm going to start over and now I've got this new knowledge and I think I'm going to do better next time? Like, is it very positive? Is it very encouraging or supportive? Or is it really breaking you down? And you won't really be able to notice the voice you're using with yourself unless you are paying attention. That's why the self-awareness and the mindfulness is necessary, because you won't know what's going on in your head unless you're paying attention. And then, like I just mentioned, embracing failure, embracing setbacks, it's kind of part of the journey, which I absolutely hate. I don't know about you, but it's my least favorite part of all of this. I don't like failing. I just don't like failing. It makes me feel stupid and I just don't like it at all. But instead of being discouraged, I try to view these moments as an opportunity to learn more about the situation, to grow, to get better. And it's always an opportunity to practice resilience. And I've had many episodes in which I go on and on about how resilience is one of the core skills that you need to be a very healthy, happy person, in the sense that if you are resilient, you can pretty much get through anything. And life is just a minefield, as we know. It has a lot of things that come up that happen to us, and the way that we become impervious to those situations is through resilience. And so how do you become resilient? By failing, by encountering setbacks. And so I try to keep that positive mindset whenever I am experiencing failure and I absolutely hate it. I try to remind myself, well, actually, this is a moment to get even better at resilience. And so I can be grateful for this opportunity to practice resilience. And that usually works for a few minutes. But just keep going with it and trying to, again, be kind, be patient. Patience is a big one, cultivating patience. Goals often take time to achieve, at least mine do. I don't ever achieve them as quickly as I would like. I would like everything to be instantaneously delivered to me, thank you. But it never is. And so practicing patience is really essential to having a good relationship with ambition, because if you're pushing and striving and you're getting mad and upset because things aren't lining up as quickly as you want to, that's not a balanced relationship with ambition. That's not healthy or helpful. Definitely try to cultivate that patience if and when you can. Also, making sure that you have that work-life balance. And this is probably one of the reasons why I have such a terrible relationship with ambition, because sometimes I get so wrapped up in my goals and the things that I want to achieve and see manifest in my 3D reality that I completely just let other aspects of my life be absorbed. So it's still necessary to have a personal life, to have hobbies, to relax. Overworking and neglecting these other aspects of my life just leads to burnout. It doesn't make me feel successful. It doesn't make me feel like I'm living a good life. It just burns me out. And so I have to often remind myself, in order to keep this healthy, balanced relationship with ambition, I have to remind myself, you don't need to be working on your goals 24/7 in order to be a successful person. You just need to make little efforts every day consistently in that direction. So it's not necessary to abandon whole sections of my life in service of these ambitions, because what is it even going to matter if I get there and I don't have great relationships and I don't have my health and I'm not happy? So I try to keep myself aware of developing different aspects of my life spherically, so it can't just always be about achievement. If it's always about achievement, my life is going to feel very one-sided, and when something doesn't go right or I don't achieve something that I wanted to, then it's going to feel like my whole life is a mess rather than just this one tiny aspect. But if I have 20 things in my life that I'm really happy with and one goes to crap, then it's like my life is still mostly good. And so it's important to not put all of your hopes and dreams, I guess, in one basket, like having everything about your life focused on the ambition aspect or on the achievement aspect, because it just does not lead to happiness. It's too heavy-handed and it's too stressful. And the other thing that I'm very guilty of not doing is celebrating my achievements anyway. So I'm not good at taking time out to honor a milestone or appreciate a goal that I've accomplished. It's really important to stop and celebrate your successes, but I don't usually do that. I usually immediately just check off the box and go, yes, done, and then I go immediately into the next goal. And that is not a great relationship to have with your ambition, because when you fail to recognize your achievements, when you're failing to take a moment to appreciate all the work you've done, it just feels like it's never enough. It cultivates this very solid narrative about never enough, and never enough just leaves us feeling very disappointed with ourselves, very disappointed with our lives. Never enough, just, I don't know, it feels like a hamster wheel, right? Like if it's just, I got to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and it's like you start to wonder, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing and what is this even for? And so I find it important, even though I almost always don't do it naturally or even want to do it, but I force myself to do it now. I have to stop and acknowledge that I've made progress or something, or stop and celebrate what I've done with that. So a good example of this is I try to write 4 books a year. That's my publishing schedule, 4 books a year, which is a lot. And so there's 2 ways to do this. I can just write a book and immediately be like, okay, good, that one's done, and I need to start working on the second one, and just immediately jump into it. And then I do it, and then it's done, and boom, I just need to do the third one. And so you start to feel tired when you do it like that, and you start to feel exhausted, and you start to be like, why does this even matter? Like, what am I doing all this writing for? And it doesn't feel like you're ever really getting anywhere, because there's just another book that needs to be written, and another one needs to be written. And so it becomes exhausting. So now what I've started to do is I've forced myself to kind of have a little celebration every time I finish a book. Like, I finished a book, and then I need to do something to mark that completion. Whether it's I take myself out for ice cream, or maybe I watch a movie that I've been postponing watching that I really wanted to watch, or maybe I give myself a day off to just do whatever I want to do that does not have any attachment to work whatsoever. But I have to mark it somehow. I have to celebrate it somehow. And that really helps to interrupt the momentum of just more and more and more, because you don't want to cultivate that feeling of never enough or just moving on to the next thing. That's definitely not going to be a healthy way to foster this ambitious nature of yours. And then the most important is probably to avoid comparison. So whenever I compare myself to other people, my progress or my journey or however we want to call it, I'm always miserable. I never feel like I'm measuring up. And that just leads to feeling like I'm inadequate, that, yes, I wrote 4 books a year, but this other author I know, she wrote 6. It's really easy to kind of beat yourself up over these things. And so avoid comparison if you want to have a healthy relationship with your ambition. Don't compare your path to anyone else's, because it's different. It's different for everybody. And you don't want to rob yourself of your own progress and your own well-being when you're comparing yourself to someone else who might even not be a great comparison. Like, on the outside, you might think you guys are exactly the same, but there might be a million factors as to why that's not true and why that's not a fair comparison. So avoid comparison as well if you'd like to have a healthy relationship with your ambition. So basically, just to wrap all this up, ambition becomes unhealthy when it leaves you chronically stressed, when it's got you neglecting your self-care, your well-being, or the prices that you're paying to have that ambition are too high. If you're sacrificing your relationships, or you're just never happy, you're never at peace, you feel like it's never enough, you just have to keep going, pushing. That means that your relationship with ambition is probably out of balance, and it would be helpful for you to start making these adjustments to bring that relationship back into balance. So yes, please chase your dreams, build the life that you deserve to have, but try to be gentle and loving with yourself while you do it. Try not to make your whole life about achievement and goals when there's so much more to you than that. There's so much more for you to have and to enjoy that's not just about ambition or achievement. And that's it for today, dear human. As always, I hope you found this episode useful. And if you would like to write into the show and ask for my thoughts on something that you're dealing with, I would love to hear from you through any of my social media or through my email at Kory@koryamstrom.com. Otherwise, I will be back next week with another episode of A Well Cared For Human. And until then, please take good care of you. This episode of A Well Cared For Human was written and produced by me, Kory Marie. The music was by Late Night Feeler and Esther Abrami. If you like what I'm doing here, please consider visiting my Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you get early ad-free access to the episodes, as well as a monthly patrons-only Q&A, bonus videos, and more. Not to mention that your Patreon support lets me know that you find value in the show and want it to continue. You can find me on Patreon by visiting www.patreon.com/Kory Marie. If you can't support the show financially, that is okay. You can still subscribe to the show, leave a review of the show, and recommend the show to your friends, not just the neurotic ones. All of this helps so much. And as always, thank you for listening.